This video explores the feeling of emptiness and disorientation that defines our age. Nihilism, as diagnosed by Nietzsche, reveals the collapse of old certainties and values, and it forces us to face an essential question. How can we find meaning in a world where ancient truths no longer sustain life? Here you are invited to reflect on the psychological and social impact of this emptiness. What happens to a society when it loses its reason to exist? Nietzsche raised this question more than a century ago, and his answer was not a comfort. It was a dark diagnosis. We are living inside that diagnosis today. Technology gave us speed. We can cross continents in hours, speak to the world in seconds, access knowledge with a click. And yet, we wake up with the same feeling of emptiness. It is not a lack of comfort, it is a lack of meaning. Nietzsche called it nihilism, the collapse of the horizon, the disappearance of values that once guided life. The death of God, as he wrote, was not only theological, it was moral, symbolic, existential. For centuries, religion provided a map. It organized morality, time, suffering, and even death. Even those not deeply religious lived within this symbolic matrix. When that map broke, a void appeared. And inside this void, our era was born. We try to replace it with pleasure, consumption, performance, distraction. But pleasure fades. Consumption wears out. Distraction never lasts. And the void always remains. Nietzsche did not celebrate the death of God. He feared its consequences. The death of God is a philosophical metaphor for the cultural and spiritual crisis of modernity. The loss of faith in an absolute foundation, the idea that morality, truth, and the meaning of life were guaranteed by something higher. Without this point of support, all reference points begin to crumble. And when there are no more certainties, only emptiness remains. A desert of values, meaning, and direction. Jung called this the general neurosis of our time, an invisible suffering without any apparent cause, a feeling of disconnection from life. Viktor Frankl observed something very similar in concentration camps. Those who could find meaning or purpose were able to endure. But those who lost that sense of purpose eventually gave up. Modernity gave us freedom, but freedom without direction becomes anxiety. We are free for everything, and at the same time for nothing. The absence of collective narratives leaves us orphans of meaning, and this orphanhood weighs on us daily. Nietzsche foresaw what was coming. He described the last man, a disturbing portrait, the human being who avoids effort, risk, and pain, and settles for shallow comfort. The last man does not suffer, but he does not live. He trades depth for distraction, calls mediocrity happiness, lives only for safety and immediate pleasure, and loses all transcendence. Look around, bodies sculpted but not sacred, busy routines but without purpose, digital connections but real loneliness. We are surrounded by stimuli, yet starving for meaning. Nietzsche feared passive nihilism, resignation before the void, the acceptance of a life reduced to comfort. This is the greatest danger of modernity, and many have already embraced it. But Nietzsche also saw another possibility. Chaos can be creative. One must still have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. The void can be a starting point, but it demands courage. Nietzsche didn't aim to simply destroy all existing values. His goal was to make room for new ones, values that are affirmative, full of life, and courageous. Values that aren't imposed from the outside, by tradition or someone else's morality, but arise from within each person, from their own experience and authenticity. He invited us to create a life that affirms itself, finding meaning and beauty even in the face of suffering and inevitable challenges. Between the death of God and the creation of new values lies an abyss, a space of uncertainty and emptiness. It is in this abyss that we live today, a time of symbolic and moral crisis. Old certainties have lost their strength. Nothing seems fixed or permanent. Everything feels relative, temporary, unstable. It is on this unstable ground that nihilism thrives. It challenges us to find or create new meanings for life. This void manifests as anxiety, depression, apathy, a silent epidemic. It is not just brain chemistry. It is the soul asking for meaning, and without answer, the soul falls ill. Nietzsche presents a clear contrast between two human figures. The last man is conformist, superficial, and passive. He seeks only comfort, security, and routine. He avoids risks and change. The overman is creative, affirmative, and transformative. He embraces the courage to live fully. He creates new values and gives meaning to his own life, even in the face of suffering. While one settles, the other dares to reinvent existence. We live between these two paths, the safety of the last man, or the dangerous courage of creating new horizons. The age of emptiness forces us to choose, and every choice has a cost. The rise of nihilism can be our ruin, but it can also be our chance. The end of inherited meaning can open space for conscious meaning. Deeper, truer. We are living in an age of emptiness. Nihilism is the greatest challenge of our time, but it can also be our greatest opportunity. If we have the courage to face the chaos and create meaning, that choice is in our hands. If you enjoyed this content, give it a like and share it. Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next videos.